Are we live? Are we live, ladies and gentlemen? Let me know if you can hear me. We're getting on a lot of news today, guys. I'm just going to let you know that right out of the bat. There's a crazy amount of news. Are we live? Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Yeah, but everybody, I want to welcome you to the stream early. Yep. I clicked live stream like 10 seconds before the actual clock hit there so that nobody could accuse me of being late. Except for Grim Sparrow, because he believes we're late. Yeah, but hey guys, if you like the stream, make sure to like it, share it, give it everywhere. You guys know the drill. But right, we have a lot to cover today. The main things that we're covering are the Vietnam trade deal and the big beautiful bill. We have some stuff to talk about in regards to both of those. Right now on the stream, it looks like they are currently doing debates. They're currently having discussions about the bill. They did, in fact, pass the vote to actually vote on the bill. So like they've done the vote to have the vote. And that's very interesting to me because yesterday when I was gone, dead, they were actually talking about not pushing the bill forward. The Freedom Caucus was making all of these big chest pumps, talking about how they were going to spend a week negotiating with the House of Representatives and Mike Johnson to get a bunch of stuff back into the bill. We are going to see about that. If we don't have a bill passed today, tomorrow, it's probably going to take another week based off of the way the Freedom Caucus leader was speaking. But as of right now, we might actually just get it passed. Mike Johnson may have pulled off his second miracle of all time. Yeah, early John politics. That's what I like to see. Early John politics. Audio is good. You guys can see me. Diddler discussion. Yeah, I have that up, guys. But if you want me to talk about Diddy, I have to know from the chat so that I know, who we're talking about when we're talking. How many of you guys are ardent Diddy supporters? How many of you guys were waiting for him to pass the trial? Where do we have any big Diddy fans in the chat? Put a big D in chat if you were the Diddy supporter. I'm sorry. That's so ridiculous, though, right? It's an absolute disgrace. It's just that I completely expected it. I completely expected Diddy to get off. I wanted him to be in prison. I didn't expect that to happen. American Nerd for 2, Mike Johnson better than John Thune. Well, that's kind of the drum that I've been beating, man. I think like Mike Johnson, I started off like I was calling him a rat last year. If he successfully gets the bill passed before July 4th, I will now refer to Mike Johnson as Magic Mike. How about that? He's Magic Mike now. What do you guys think about that? Because it's still a bit of a joke. It's still a joke name, but at the same time, Mike has pulled off like two. This will be his second consecutive miracle, and by most churches' standards, 2 miracles is what you need to qualify somebody for sainthood. So we're gonna go with Magic Mike. We're gonna call him Magic Mike if he gets this dadgum bill passed through the House. Oh man, MAGA Mike. Yeah, no, he is MAGA Mike Chance. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. He is very much MAGA Mike. He is, and that's the thing. That's the distinction between Thune and Johnson. Johnson understands his entire political career is based upon the success or the failure of Trump's administration. And so he's completely on board. He's more on board than I've ever seen a speaker on board with Trump. And that's the main thing. I think that he deserves a lot of credit, especially if he pulls this off. Yeah, I am amusing comment, K-Dog, but I'm not going to say that. Yeah, no. If you do want me to say your comment, make sure to send a super chat. If you want Rap to come on the stream, make a super chat. I don't know. I think Rap might be caught up with a couple things today. He did release that video for you guys, though. And for any of you guys that did not see the video, He lets you guys know that On Point Politics is full of crap. He was proven wrong like the second that he started crapping on Rap. And Rap has been behind the scenes working on some stuff. I haven't gotten a chance. I've watched half of the video. I haven't watched the full video that Rap just released. But I don't know how much he told you guys. But at the end of the day, I said it again. I hate that phrase. I'm gonna stop saying that phrase, guys. But yeah, just keep in tune for that. Rap's gonna be on a little hiatus. He's been able to kind of focus on his personal projects, and the stuff he's been doing is really cool. I'll tell you that much. He's been up to some very cool stuff. I don't know how much of it you will see. Some of it is for the channel. Some of it is just for his personal life stuff. And I really support him doing that. So me and Luke and Tyrone and Drill Texan and everybody else will keep on plugging the channel along until he gets back and starts wanting to do his proper stream schedule again. But yeah, no. Yeah, Sebastian, I understand. While I was frustrated with him during Biden's tenure, I understood why he had to deal with so much crap. Now he doesn't have an excuse for the Republican president. Well, yeah, no. No, I'm very proud of Mike. If you're talking about Mike, OPP can't stay out of drama. Yeah, seems like it. I don't want to be in drama. I really don't. I'm not even part of election Twitter. John Rose, this gentleman here, is not necessarily. I'm part of political Twitter, but I'm not part of election Twitter. So I don't really want to be in it. I don't want to be in the hot tub. But he did do my man dirty. You got to understand that. He did do my man dirty. Rap being late is better than being on point. Yeah, probably, man. But anyways, let's get to it. I hope that we'll have more news on the big, beautiful bill, and I can talk to you guys about the benefits that we really will be getting from it in spite of everything they've done to try to make this bill bad. There are still massive benefits, and those are the things we have to focus on, the positive end. But let's talk about Vietnam. I have it on the screen here. It is my great honor to announce, Donald Trump, that I have just made a trade deal with the Socialist Republic of Vietnam after speaking with To Lam, the highly respected General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam. It will be a great deal of cooperation between our two countries. The terms are that Vietnam will pay the United States a 20% tariff on any and all goods sent into our territory and a 40% tariff on any transshipping. And so that means if they're shipping goods from one part of the world to another and they're using our ports and stuff, they're going to pay. But in return, Vietnam will do something they've never done before. Give the United States of America total access to their markets for trade. In other words, they will open their market to the United States, meaning that we will be able to sell our product into Vietnam at zero tariff. It is my opinion that the SUV, or as it is sometimes referred to, large engine vehicle, which does so well in the US, will be a wonderful addition to the various product lines within Vietnam. Dealing with the General Secretary To Lam, which I did personally, was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So this is a really big deal, guys. This is a really big deal. And I want you to understand it both in the context of our relationship between the US and Vietnam and what this implies for China, for Russia, for everybody else. You need to understand this is way bigger than you might think. So going through it, Vietnam has always had a certain amount of tariffs on all of our products. Some of them are lower, some of them were higher. But this is going to guarantee that we have fair market value for products that have very thin margins, like agricultural products. So, I think we were trying to ship chickens, apples, almonds, other stuff. There are many agricultural products, like we were having trouble sending to the UK. We can send beef to the UK now. We're going to be able to send chicken, apples, almonds, other stuff to Vietnam, and it's going to be cheap enough for people to actually buy. Is it going to be as cheap as China stuff? No, but we're still going to be competitive because they're always going to perceive our products as being higher quality. So, just like how with Europe, sometimes they perceive our products as being lower quality because the EU has 8 bajillion regulations. It's the same thing with China is on a lower rung than we are in terms of quality. And so our stuff is going to be viewed by a Vietnamese market as being a little bit higher. So, there's smaller wins like that where we had, low tariffs that were keeping us from being able to buy thin profit margin stuff, sell thin profit margin stuff. The big stuff really They're going to be buying aerospace supplies from us. They're the government and all of the companies that are run by the government. They're going to buy aerospace materials from us. They're going to buy machinery from us for their factories. They're going to buy energy from us, which they have been, but they're going to keep buying energy from us. And it's going to be at a lower price. Those margins, even if you think like the tariffs on oil and stuff were already kind of low, you have to understand oil is this kind of market where any decrease in price instantly means lots and lots of money. So I'm seeing big energy booms in the future, big aerospace booms, machinery booms, boom, 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 like the Costco brothers, you know? We are going to have a lot of activity in Vietnam, and it's mostly going to be the government buying our stuff, and the people will mostly just be buying our like food and stuff. It's still a really big improvement. Now, a lot of the stuff that might change behind the scenes, remember they had, just like the EU, some behind the scenes prohibitionary stuff, like invisible taxes on our goods. And we don't have full information on what they're going to do with that behind the scenes kind of stuff. But you know that the Trump admin is on it. I believe they're going to be ripping it apart. And we're going to have big things. And like you said, the reason Trump brings up auto is because obviously he cares about our auto industry and he wants it restored. But the other big thing is because autos have always had like, I think 50, 60, 65% tariffs over in Vietnam. It's been very high tariffs on our cars going into Vietnam. And it looks like now we're actually going to be able to sell our cars over there. It's going to be pretty crazy. So yeah, Doomers coping because they have nothing to doom about. Yeah, no, I think there's not much to doom about right now. Everything's looking really great. Like everything, foreign policy is looking great. Trade is looking great. The tariffs are looking great. The bill, when it passes, hey, you know, we knew Congress sucks. This is like the best thing we're getting from. And listen, it's like Stephen Miller and JD Vance have always been saying, immigration needs to be enforced. And when we enforce immigration, a lot of these other costs that we have in like the welfare systems, they will naturally go down because we're wasting so much money that we can't track well, giving welfare to illegals. So very happy, very, very, very glad we've been able to get a lot of the MAGA agenda through. Taking a quick look here, though. Yeah, okay, so I see you guys probably just want to talk about Diddy, but we'll get back to this in a second because I really want to discuss the implications going for the wider trade sphere. But let's talk about Diddy. Let's talk about Diddy. Free Diddy, right? Diddy was found not guilty on all the serious charges he may walk. Not guilty for racketeering conspiracy, not guilty for sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, not guilty for sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. So, ladies and gentlemen, the only two things that the court was able to find him guilty of was transportation to engage in prostitution, 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, that is still a serious crime, and both of those charges do imply jail time. But as I was speaking with someone earlier, it looks like that there may not be a mandatory minimum on those costs. So we really have no idea what exactly is going to happen in that situation. Diddy is absolutely guilty. Just going to say it. Allegedly, whatever not. I'm just giving you my opinion. It's very clear. Everybody knows that he committed all these crimes. And saying that he's not guilty, of course, someone was asking me, well, what is the difference between being not guilty and innocent? And this actually goes back very deep into English common law. For most of English common law's existence, pretty much going back to the 13th century, which is when the Magna Carta was, created. So basically from the very start of English common law, the English language has used this term not guilty rather than innocent because the courts are actually, they don't put the burden of guilt on the defendant. So they're not trying to get the defendant to prove they're innocent. They're trying to get the prosecution to prove that they did whatever they did. And the court is essentially saying through these verdicts that, oh, well, we didn't have enough evidence to prove Diddy did X, Y, and Z. Racketeering, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. I'm obviously very disappointed by those results. But as you guys can see, this is what we're having to deal with. Let's see. Black privilege. Diddy killed Tupac. Quote me on that. Oh, goodness gracious. So I guess we could be talking about the greater. I don't have as much fire in my belly for the greater injustices going on as a result of Diddy being set free. As you guys probably are aware, there are a lot of people in Diddy's circles, the people he was bringing the children to, the people that he was involved with, that obviously have to go down. But once again, the elites of this country have avoided accountability for what they're doing. And that might be part of why Diddy was given a not guilty verdict. It may be corruption of the courts. It may be trying to prevent further crimes from being revealed. It might have to. It might have a lot to do with other things. But you know, it's been so many years now with the Epstein stuff, and with, you know, back when Trump first got into office, Pizzagate and everything. There's just been so much that we know is going on that can't be uncovered. I kind of just accept as a matter of fact that these people are going to get away with it. American Nerd for Two. This is basically OJ 2.0, isn't it? Yeah, in a sense. I haven't seen fully exactly what Outlash is in. I did see people go, free Diddy, free Diddy. Of course, some people thinking that he needs to be free just because he's black. Although what I'll say, I do know a couple of people that will over and over again say and argue different theories with O.J. Simpson's trial. I know my fiance Lily usually will say stuff like, "Oh, what is it that she says?" She usually says that O.J. was trying to protect his son. I don't know if you guys knew that, but O.J.'s son was like really bizarre, rampant. He had already had multiple charges. He was crazy off drugs. He and basically my fiance thinks that OJ's son did it and that OJ was covering up his crimes for his son. You guys can think that's crazy, but that was her theory. K-Cup for Two feels more like Bill Cosby 2.0 to me. Yes or no? Bill Cosby 2.0. I mean, I don't know. We could talk about a bunch of different things, but what everybody's getting at with this is that Diddy was obviously guilty. He's gotten off free, but there's a mixture of things going on where Diddy is connected to a bunch of other people. And if he was the domino to fall, then there's supposed to be a bunch of other things that we uncover. And by being proven not guilty on certain things, maybe there have been doors closed to investigation, doors closed to inspection of what the elites are up to. I don't know exactly, but I do think that this is injustice. This is obviously injustice. This should not be allowed to happen in our country. Courts should be forced to actually prosecute people when they have done wrong. But then again, I'm saying all of this without investigating the specifics of the case. I haven't been tracking the Diddy case. So perhaps the prosecution really did suck. If the prosecution sucks in a case and they don't provide the burden of proof, then you don't get a guilty verdict. And unfortunately, that's how law goes in this system. If you have bad prosecution, then justice is not served. If you have bad defendants, then people are wrongly prosecuted. But it's a lot better than many other systems that existed throughout time. So definitely going to accept the flaws of this system. Accept the flaws of the system, but not accept the corruption, which is what we're looking at right here. And this is corruption. Through and through and through. Is it possible Diddy snitched in return of not being guilty? Well, I haven't heard anything about that. And that's something that happens sometimes in these cases, but I have heard no reports of Diddy snitching. And I guess if that were true, we would find out pretty quickly, right? Within a few weeks, a couple months, we would see a new case open up. But I highly doubt it. I'm just going to be straight. Highly doubt it. Ray, we've only been talking about Diddy and Vietnam so far. I did bring up briefly at the beginning that the House is currently going through the motions that they have to prior to actually doing the real vote. The crazy thing about that is that we ended up passing. We ended up actually passing with the House the resolution to continue and actually do the vote. The Libertarians and the Freedom Caucus, they were whining on news networks and everything else yesterday that that wasn't going to happen. And so that is a crazy thing that's been going on today. Double jeopardy means Diddy won't be charged for the same crimes again. So unless it's a federal court prosecuting him on the same charges, this is totally unfair. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't the prosecutor in the Diddy case the literal daughter of James Comey? Yep. So that's correct. It's both corruption and incompetence. What you would call this is probably intentional incompetence upon the prosecution's face. I think that might absolutely be something going on. It may be a case where the prosecution did not do their job because they were told to not do their job. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I'm not getting the stream taken down with one suggestion from a gentleman on the chat. But yeah, no, that's really, I don't have anything else to say about Diddy. It's corruption through and through. It's bad. Diddy should be prosecuted. And if there was incompetence, I am going to think that it was malicious incompetence. And what I mean by that is I think that the prosecution actually was acting and did not do their job, do their due diligence because they were told not to or they're being paid not to. But getting back to the Vietnam stuff real quick before, I have a bunch of stories to cover, guys, but I wanted to talk about the implications, the wider implications of Vietnam opening up its trade with the U.S. The U.S. opening up, being able to export goods to Vietnam means that we're directly competing with China for them. And because we're bringing goods into Vietnam and we have a new avenue for them to get resources, we're also decreasing their dependence on China. And we're also opening up the possibility for Vietnam to try and steal jobs from China and its manufacturing base. They're a gigantic freaking manufacturing base, so they can steal jobs probably for a while without really upsetting China. But you could see a lot of stuff going to Vietnam in this kind of antagonistic relationship where Vietnam has been used to avoid trade barriers with the United States. It could, in fact, be the case where Vietnam instead turns against China and helps us in building systems actually completely separate from China itself. That's something that I've been considering for quite a while. Hey there, Luke. We have our China aficionado here. What's going on, man?
How is it going, Patriots? You know, I just had some Chinese food for lunch. That's actually not a joke. So, I had some leftover Chinese food. So yeah, I guess I am the Chinese aficionado today.
Well, you came just in time because I started off by explaining the relationship between U.S. and China. We're going to be able to export a bunch of goods, mostly agricultural, aerospace, machinery, and stuff, into Vietnam. And then I talked about Vietnam and America's relationship, and then I talked about how the U.S. and Vietnam can be positioned to compete with China on a manufacturing basis and also just trade in general. But now we can talk about the wider scope now that you're here. Chinese cooperation, which is that this all can be a play. Us having this access to Vietnam, having more leverage with China, could enable China to actually take amicable terms with us in trade and be able to pivot away from a lot of Russian goods that they weren't really planning on having anyways. Do you have any relative opinions on us being best friends with China and then buying our energy?
What I will say is this, Donald John America, the greatest president of the millennia, which isn't really saying much because they only have like 4 and the other 3 were shit. But the greatest president of the millennia so far, he made a very good point a few months ago when he said, you know, we don't want the Chinese not to do business here. We just want to be able to do business there too. So I think that's what we're heading towards, more of a symbiotic relationship, which prevents further tensions and also gets a more fair playing field. So it's a win-win. So yeah, the Chinese, they don't have to leave America. We don't need to kick everyone out and stop them from doing business here. We're just like, you guys want to do business here? How about we send some Americans to do some business in Beijing too? And that's what it sounds like is probably going to be happening. I see that being the future. Um,
Now,
and I think that's definitely something that's very positive for the future of the United States and China, and preventing a war from breaking out as well. That's also pretty cool.
right.
Because I don't really
So
like war. I'm not a big fan of that, but
So with China and Vietnam, I'm sure you guys will understand that with the type of economies that these countries run, as well as their priorities, they do not have a large consumer market. So there's not a lot of the kinds of goods that you and I purchase every single day that these people will be getting, other than food. China could buy food from us just like Vietnam is, if they wish to. We don't know what exact trade barriers China is going to lower. They just promised to lower trade barriers and let our goods come into their country. But with both the Chinese government and the Vietnamese government and the factories and the businesses that are controlled by them, they're going to be buying the things that I just mentioned: machinery for their factories, aerospace materials for any air force that they have. They're going to purchase energy. Vietnam's already been purchasing energy, but their tariffs have been completely smushed. And like I said, those small margins, even if there was only a 5% tariff on LNG, oil is such, it's this type of market that's unique, where any small change can shift where oil is being produced and where oil is being sold to. We've got actually a super chat for K-Cub. K-Cub for 5. Hey, Luke, question. What does the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling do for us? As a pro-life Catholic, I hate the ruling, but it's all the state Dems really had.
yeah, I think, and this is going to sound morbid, but I think this ruling actually gives Josh Schoeman a much better shot at winning the governorship. And I know people are like, why are you using this? But like, here's the thing. I know on paper it sounds bad, but in reality, no one has been enforcing this 1849 law since it went into effect. Planned Parenthood left the state in 2022 for like a year, but there were still plenty of other abortion clinics operating. Planned Parenthood then came back after Janet won the Supreme Court race in 2023. So there's basically been unregulated abortion since then anyways. This law only existed on paper and was never enforced, so now it's just gone. So nothing is changing, and now the libs can't use this law in ads anymore because it's gone. they can't really use it. So I guess you could say it's technically bad, but it's not enforced. So nothing's changing, in other words, except. Yeah, go on.
No, I was gonna add to that. Just disarming your enemy, always a good play. So hopefully this helps you guys out in the way that you're saying. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to get back to what I was talking about. What did you have any other thoughts on the whole thing?
I'm trying to think. I was going to say something else. Yeah, the woke mob, they wanted to have a little symbiotic victory. So I guess, yay, they get to celebrate a law that wasn't enforced being struck down. But I'll be fully clear too. Part of the thing with federalism and states' rights, which us as a party support, means that we want to have laws that are in line with the state's population. Wisconsin is one of the most pro-abortion states in the country. There's many states that are swing and somewhat competitive that probably would be more okay with having an abortion, like Georgia does, but no one really cares because it's more in line with the state's views. Wisconsin is a Midwestern Rust Belt state. The Midwest is known to be a very pro-choice area. Even the more red states, like we remember Kansas, South Dakota, all these all these states have voted to enshrine abortion in their constitutions. Michigan, obviously, too. Ironically, Michigan was closer than the other two. But still, like all these states voted to enshrine abortion in their constitution. So having a complete and total ban on abortion in the state of Wisconsin doesn't really fit with the state. So this law was naturally going to go. Dems always call it the 1849 ban because that's when it was written. And I think it's safe to say politics has changed a lot since 1849. some for the better, some for the worse. But yeah, so that's the way I see it, and I think this will
Right.
either be a very good thing or a not have much effect at all. So
Right. Okay. And Cat in the House, I'm going to hold your comment for a second because I do want to talk about that, but I'm going to try and wrap up this stuff with Vietnam. The thing I wanted to say, the biggest of big pictures that I see happening here, there is an opportunity for everybody in East Asia to cooperate with the United States to shift markets, because really Southeast Asia, China, all of these economies are the ones that are kind of at the center of world trade. When you really talk about the mass moving of goods, they have an opportunity to pivot away from countries like Russia, given that the United States now is in this situation where we can sell liquid natural gas and energy in general to these countries. If China starts accepting American energy, then they don't have as strong of a relationship with Russia anymore. And it really creates a lot of potentially positive circumstances. This creates potential pressure on Russia to resolve their conflicts in other parts of the world. And it also encourages Russia to cooperate with us so that we're not interfering or pushing them out of certain markets that are very important to their long-term sustainability. So I think generally, I really hope that's what's happening. There could be a smaller play where the U.S. and Vietnam are trying to build up manufacturing and actually make a counterweight to manufacturing in the East with China, with Vietnam and other countries. Or we could be going into a situation where China, Vietnam, United States, and other countries create a pivot point against Russia and other countries so that they wrap up their wars, get everything settled in. So again,
yeah, don't get anything confused too. Just because China and Vietnam are both communists and they're neighbors does not mean they get along at all. They actually quite hate each other. During the Vietnam War, that's part of the reason that Nixon was able to get deals with China so easily, because China was very fed up with Vietnam, and Vietnam had a very contrary worldview to the Chinese. So that's always been something. They've never really been on very good terms. So
right.
let's think that like they're in the same region, both communist, they're gonna like each other. Not really the case. But yeah,
It's the case with all these countries. Of course, Vietnam. It's really funny. Vietnam is one of these communist countries that, from its very inception, because of what was going on in Cambodia next to it, like Cambodia was the place where the Khmer Rouge is. Pol Pot. You guys know about Pol Pot, right? So
killed like half the country. Yeah.
Right. He killed all the people wearing glasses. Killed everybody. It was a terrible, terrible regime, and that kind of made it so it started this trend where Vietnam was like, well, look, we get like there's this whole like Marxist revolution happening across the planet, but we don't really care because the people right next to us are really stupid. So we'll just cooperate with like democratic countries. We'll cooperate with republics. We'll, like anybody that's not being insane, because the guys next to us are being insane. So that started this trend of Vietnam having positive relations with the United States, having positive relations with democratic countries across the world. So yeah, that if you've ever wondered why a socialist regime is willing to team up with us, it's because they had really insane neighbors that convinced them at the start. Oh yeah, you know what? Let's just chill out. Anyways, I did want to talk about this really quick. Cat in the House was bringing up a big, beautiful bill point that we should discuss. What is the best counter argument on the Democrats ranting about Medicaid on the OBBB? You wrote Medicare, which is the program for 65 and up, but I think you're discussing Medicaid because that's the big contentious topic. Medicaid is for impoverished and disabled people. So I have a few things to discuss, and it's directly related to my expertise. So I understand this world. I understand the potential pitfalls. Here's a couple things that you need to know about the Democrats claiming X millions of people are losing Medicaid. Number one, this is a prediction based off of budget changes. It is not a policy. The policy is not, oh, we're going to rip millions of people off of Medicaid. The only place where that's true is in the case of the work requirement, where we're requiring people to work 80 hours per month, which is the equivalent of a part-time job. You can either volunteer or you can work a job, but if you're working 20 hours a week, volunteering or working, you will be able to keep your Medicaid. And that is not meant to kick millions of people off of Medicaid, but to get people back in the job market. Because there's a lot of people who have not just become unemployed, but refuse to actually go get a job. And so anyways, I'm not going to defend any further because Republican rhetoric is really terrible on that. They attack their own base every single time they try to explain this policy. So I'm not going to go any further on that. But understand.
Hey, we gotta get them lazy 30-year-olds out of the mom's basement. Okay, y'all? That's what we gotta do, man.
Right.
You know, back in my day, I paid off my $2,000 student loan in like 2 years. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah, but no, the whole thing that I was looking at, this is a CBO estimate. Everything beyond that is a CBO estimate. And what they're estimating, by the way, this is the office that said, "Oh, tariffs are going to do terrible. Trump's economy is going to crash. There's going to be massive deficit increase because Trump, because nothing that happened the first time Trump was president will ever happen again." Blah blah blah. So it's a bunch of Democrats predicting horrible things will happen. So the Democrats are like, "Oh, millions of people are going to lose Medicaid," and they're like, "Why?" And they're like, "Well, look at this report by our buddies that say things are going to happen. We hired people that are telling us a disaster is going to come, and the disaster people say there's going to be a disaster." No, you have to understand the incentives here. The CBO is incentivized to be biased against Republicans. These Democrats are using a narrative that has been spun for them, just like how Bloomberg said tariffs would crash the economy, just like all of this other nonsense going on. There's incentives behind the line for them to say these things. So that's the first big point. Bring up the fact that all of this is from the CBO, same people who are lying about the economy in every other aspect. The second thing that I would bring up is just the actual mechanics of it. So when the big, beautiful bill, if it passes today or next week, it will increase the burden of paying for Medicaid from 10% to 20% for the state. So that's a lot of money. And the states are going to have to reconfigure their payment structures, their revenue structures, so that they can pay for more Medicaid. So the burden is being shifted from 90-10 federal government, state government to 80-20 federal, state government. We're still paying for 80% of all of this. Their theory is that a lot of Medicaid expansion is going to have to be shut down as a result of this move, and that they're going to shut it down and blame it on Republicans. And also just the prediction. Another thing really important about this, the prediction is not like tomorrow. It's not instantaneous. It's over the course of like 9 years. So by 2034, they're estimating 10 million, 12 million, 20 million people will be off of Medicaid. And that is a result of expansion programs being shut down. Medicaid expansion is basically this chunk of people that are getting Medicaid that don't get Medicaid under the normal program because they make a little bit too much money. It was created because there were some people who made too much money to be on Medicaid, but not enough money to be on Obamacare. There's a gap there. And so the expansion was created to try and fill the gap. So what I would say to the Democrats saying this is, number one, we're kicking illegals off. That's actually really important. Just bring up that we're kicking illegals off, and the program will go insolvent if you don't kick the illegals off. Understood? That's what you say to a Democrat who's arguing this. The second thing you say, it's a prediction. It's a prediction with 5 or 6 different assumptions based off of it. Number one, that the state won't be able to pay for their new burden. Number two, that they'll shut down expansion as a consequence of it. Number three, that the people that they're talking about with the job requirements won't actually go and just work a part-time job. So there's like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 assumptions layered on top of, 10, 20 million people will lose their Medicaid. I was really worried that we were actually shutting off Medicaid expansion and that we were providing no more funding whatsoever for Medicaid expansion. That was my concern, particularly. And there was a rumor going around that Thune was going to shut it down with a vote. The vote never came. It was a bullshit rumor that never happened. That's what you saw me tweeting about. And again, this is going to be the Democrat attacking line. They're going to say it. You're going to hear this over and over and over again for like the next 3 or 4 years. No, Trump killed 10 million people off Medicaid. Trump killed 20 million people off of Medicaid. They're going to say that. And you're going to have to look at the actual statistics because these people are just making predictions. And they're not even making predictions that will be fulfilled by midterms or by the 28 election. They're talking about a prediction that takes about a decade to be fulfilled. You guys understand that? Okay. American Nerd for 2. Dems are the party of the boy who cried wolf. Absolutely. And I have proof for you in just 1 second of another thing that they're lying about. But I'll leave that for 1 second. Mike Finn for 5. To his credit, John Thune actually snuck in provisions for defunding Medicaid for illegals and transcare, which were struck down by the parliamentarian. There were a lot of things that we wanted in the bill that Thune just simply left out. And it's not, and yeah, I'm glad that it was put in there and that we ignored the parliamentarian on, defunding illegals and defunding the trans affirming care. I'm glad that those were put back in the bill. And a lot of us were confused because they voted on it anyways. And from what we understand from Senator Eric Schmidt, he put up a thread. I guess I should show you guys that thread so that everybody is on the same page. I'm going to pull that up real quick so that you guys are on the same page as everyone. We put that stuff back in the bill. And I'm glad about that. But there was a bunch of other compromises I was not happy about. We were going to defund Planned Parenthood for 10 years, and we only did it for like 1. We were going to get remittances up. Remittances are a big deterrent for illegal immigration. And it just was absolutely... Remittances were supposed to discourage illegal immigration and discourage these third world migrants, but now it's like a 1% tax on specific things. Anyways, all right, let's go ahead and read this together. I want you guys to be fully aware of what happened with Medicaid. The big, beautiful bill kicks 1.4 million illegal immigrants off of Medicaid. For too long, Americans have been paying for the welfare of people who shouldn't even be in our country. Today, the Senate voted to end that. And yes, this did make it into the final draft of the bill. Yesterday, there were a lot of rumors floating around about the ban on Medicaid for illegals being stripped from the bill. Thankfully, that's not true. It's very much in the bill that we passed. You can look it up, page 602, section 77109. And if you guys want to check it for yourselves, I will give you the file right here. Here's the link that he put, Senator Eric Schmidt. You're going to see me put it in chat right now. So you guys can go check that for yourselves if you want to. But yeah, let's keep going. Here's where the rumor came from. During yesterday's Votorama, an amendment banning Medicaid for illegal immigrants was voted down. The clip of that vote started circulating online, and folks took that to mean that the provision had been stripped from the bill altogether. But that was just one of many messaging amendments designed to force Democrats to vote against specific provisions. In this case, a ban on some Medicaid funding for illegal aliens who commit heinous crimes on the record. It was meant to show the public how radical they are. And here's the thing that I wanted you guys to see. And this is what I retweeted. This was the big point of me like promoting the thread in the first place. The ban itself was already in the bill. It was never taken out. And it wasn't just a ban on some Medicaid for illegal immigrants who commit crimes. It applies to all Medicaid for all illegals and most non-citizens generally. And the bill we passed actually goes further. Beyond banning Medicaid, it, number 1, requires states to verify citizenship status before providing coverage. 2, bans automatic Medicaid enrollment for children of illegals. 3, excludes DACA Dreamers from Medicaid. So that was the big thing. Check out Eric Schmidt, Senator Schmidt. He's a Sen Eric Schmidt. And so he provided that news to clarify, yes, we did kick illegals off Medicaid. And now we have Ye in here. How are you doing, Ye?
Hi.
Hello, hello. We have been talking about lots of stuff. We've been talking about Vietnam.
Oh, good.
We've been talking about Diddy parties. You have some Diddy in you? You have some
Diddy blood, dude?
Yeah. Were you were you pro Diddy? I was asking chat that at the start of the stream. Are you pro Diddy?
Is anybody actually pro Diddy? I didn't know those people existed outside of like a bit.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. Free Diddy, man. Yeah, free Diddy.
Free Diddy. Didn't do.
Yeah. But
anyways, what's the discussion now? Medicaid, big beautiful bill.
Right. So we've been talking about Medicaid. I read Eric Schmidt's thread explaining we did kick the illegals off Medicaid. The thing that started this discussion was a question from chat, and it was, what's the best argument against Democrats whining about, well, you kicked 8 bajillion people off of Medicaid? And so what are your general thoughts on that?
So, okay, I haven't read the bill fully, so correct me if I'm wrong on this. As far as I know, that 17 million number is just like unemployed middle-aged men that are getting Medicare and now will not get Medicaid that will now not get Medicaid. Like, or so, it's illegal aliens, and it's those people. It's not like, I don't think, as far as I know, there's how do I put this? Elderly people aren't being kicked off. People who work aren't being kicked off.
Yeah.
It is purely people who either aren't working or are illegal or are the children of illegals.
Right. So the two groups that are being kicked off, you're correct, are illegals, non-citizens, and also people that aren't working 80 hours per month. So part-time. If you're working part-time, you get to keep your Medicaid. Now, the actual figure 17 million, that's not those groups. The figure 17, some are saying 11 million, some are saying 17, some are saying 20 million. All of those figures are numbers thrown out from an estimation over 10 years from the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO.
From what? Like, is that just, are they talking about, because they keep saying Americans are losing their health care, Americans losing their health care. It sounds like illegal aliens and their children are losing health care. It doesn't sound like Americans are losing them.
So, right. Illegals are losing healthcare. Americans are not losing healthcare. The only group of Americans losing healthcare right now are people that can't be bothered to go work a part-time job. Disabled people still get healthcare. The sick get healthcare. If there's elderly that aren't quite on Medicare yet, they will get Medicaid. But basically their actual argument that they're not saying, because they don't want to actually talk about the real argument because it's bullcrap. But the actual argument is that we're forcing the states to pay for a larger percent of Medicaid costs, and that this burden is going to force states to end Medicaid expansion policies and shut down those. And so they're saying, like, the people that make the most, the highest earners under Medicaid, are going to get kicked off of Medicaid. That's what they're arguing.
What is that salary look like? What's that salary range of people who do that?
Okay, so it's generally it actually can vary a bit based off of state to state, but for the federal limit, it's 138% of the federal poverty line. And so you're talking about people that make within the range of like early 20,000 a year, like 20, 21,000. That's the kind of pay range you're talking about.
Okay. So it gets rid of it. Basically, it's the states aren't going to cover Medicaid expansion. So like, it's awesome, dude. I like how because like here's the thing. What I hate about this whole thing is everyone's like, oh, illegal aliens don't get Medicaid. They don't get Medicaid. They do explicitly. Yeah. Even ignoring the argument of several states like California and New York giving Medicaid to illegal aliens through their own programs, which are federally funded, by the way. The main problem with this is, one, their children get Medicaid, which they shouldn't even be citizens in the first place, which hopefully once we get rid of that, we can even more easily crack down on that shit. But secondly, if they have like an emergency situation, if they go into not even that, if they go into an emergency room with a stomach ache, they qualify for Medicaid, and then your tax dollars are paying for their stomach ache treatment. That is
Right.
just true. You can ask any source about that.
All right. So if you talk to someone working in Medicaid, they will tell you that there are illegals on Medicaid. It is state policy in places like California for illegals to be on Medicaid. And yeah, the requirements to get onto it are pretty low. You just need you see. So I'm not going to tell you guys what my current work is, but what I used to actually work directly for Obamacare. I think the requirements to be on like Medicaid disability are like a note from your doctor that like diagnosed you and a couple other things. They're actually very easy to obtain things. You don't actually have to be on SSDI, which is the Social Security Disability. Now, if you want to get on Social Security Disability, that is a pain in the butt, and it's going to take you years. But for Medicaid, it's way easier to get on Medicaid, guys. And as someone that worked for Obamacare, I can tell you, I directly spoke to people who were not in this country legally that were getting Obamacare, okay? You're going to have to just trust me. You're going to have to trust me on that, okay? I was talking to people that were on Obamacare illegally. And they weren't all Hispanic. There were some Hispanic families. A lot of them were Asian. Very Asian families.
It's heavily Asian and it's heavily East African.
Yeah. No. So, but yeah, the genuine concern that I'm telling people and that I tweeted about a few days ago, the Medicaid gap is this place between people who can afford Obamacare and people who can afford Medicaid. Medicaid expansion was supposed to cover that, and it covers it in 41 states. But again, if the states adjust their tax burdens and just change what they're paying for, they will instantly be able to cover this again. So it's not that we're not clicking a lever to shut it down. It's up to the states whether or not they want to continue Medicaid expansion. It is not a federal policy. We're changing the burden from 90-10 to 80-20. So the federal government's been paying 90% of all Medicaid costs up until now, and now we're going to pay 80%. So
there's a really easy way. You know, if you're a state like California, and you know you're already several $billion in deficit because all of your rich people left because of your tax rates, and you're wanting to continue to cover Medicaid expansion, you remove the people who are here illegally that you're giving free healthcare for just existing, and then would you believe it? You now have the money to continue providing Medicare to your actual citizens.
Right. So if California ends Medicaid expansion and tries to blame Trump, it is not the Trump administration's fault. It is actually the fault of the state that continues to serve people that do not, or that are not there legally, people that do not pay taxes. They're explicitly serving people that are not supposed to be served. And, you know, if California ends that policy, they could easily pay for Medicaid expansion. But no, if any of these blue states shut down expansion because of this, they cannot blame Trump. They have to look in the mirror and look at their absolutely abominable economic policies that have caused all of these major cities to go into the red. Polite rude guy for two. Hispanics for Trump 2028. My family will agree. You were saying that the other day too, man, weren't you? You're really excited about voting for Trump a fourth time. I can't believe it. No, man.
Oh yeah, can we talk about that actually? I was looking at the numbers from like approval rating. Like most polls, like most realistic polls, right? I'm not talking about AP with their fucking -15 Trump approval rating because no other polls are showing that. Like ones that have him like -3, -4, they have state level approval ratings. And his approval rating in like wider states like Maine, New Hampshire, states like that, he is actually underperforming his 2024 margin. Like I think he's like -8 or -10 in New Hampshire, but he's like +8 in Georgia. Like he is killing it in Georgia and like other states that are less white, like more Hispanic, more black. His approval rating with black people is like not even 20%, I think. But it's still enough that you combine, because like, you know, Republican or Democrats don't win in Georgia without one, they need pretty ridiculous black turnout, and it also has to be like 95-5. And I don't think Harris got either of those. That's why Trump won Georgia by what, 3 points?
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like closer to 3.
Yeah.
No, I think that's definitely something to look at. It's a strange and crazy trend of white. It might actually be a trick of age too, and I'll talk about that real quick. But you see all these demographics shifting away from whites and towards minorities for Trump. Trump is pro minorities. Trump's losing percentages with white people, and he's gaining percentages with minorities. But let me tell you something: the younger portion of this country's population are a lot less white than the older parts. And so what I'm thinking is that the boomers are getting really upset at Trump because of the cable news and everything and all of the stuff that's happening. But I think it's like the young people and the minorities together are approving of it. And so I think that might actually explain some of these changes you see. I really think it's like it's a combination of the older people being white and the younger people being Hispanic and black.
Yeah.
I think that actually is part of the equation here. I think that might be what's causing this.
This is interesting because I think race dep or race dep. It's race depolarization. It's the concept of minorities are going to move right, whites are going to move left. It's going to equal out in like 60 years. I don't believe in that. I think to an extent it will happen, but not to the level that people are talking about. What you look at that is if you look at exit polls and you look at data, the suants or whatever. It is the extremely old non-white voters keeping that margin so high. Black boomers are like 96% Democrat. But the younger ones, like the 18 to 30 are like, I think they're like 15 to 20% Republican. It's the same thing with Hispanics. I think Hispanics are like the older you get, the more Democrat they are.
Mm-hmm.
And as those boomers die out and as they stop voting, you're going to see those voters just naturally trend right because they don't have the party apparatus that's like constantly feeding them that shit. They didn't grow up either during the civil rights movement or directly after it. And 2, young voters in general are just less polarized racially.
Right. So I think it's a little bit depolarization. I think it's also the different content that young and old people consume that's majorly causing these shifts. And I think all of these things are working together to make the map very confusing. But I actually think it'll turn out real positive for us at the end. I do have a super chat from Chris Creative for 5. New Tennessee law would criminalize aiding undocumented immigrants, but they're being sued to stop it. Right. As you guys probably understand, when an ICE raid happens, there are going to be a mixture of people here legally and people here illegally. And a lot of the times, in order to actually apprehend the people who need to be deported, there is going to have to be a temporary arrest made of the people that are actually there. Now, I would love it for that Tennessee law to go through. I would like it to always be a crime to be assisting in this. But, the reason it's like contentious right now, not just because they're trying to be that court case is going on. There are actual congressional Republicans sitting in the House of Representatives right now. I think it's about 20 or 30 of them that verbally are trying to require the Trump administration to not arrest, even temporarily, the people trying to prevent the arrest of the illegals. Seriously. And that to me is so bizarre. If you are trying to prevent a criminal from being apprehended, you're going to get arrested too. It's like you're obstructing law enforcement. That in itself is a problem. But yeah, no, this is a really crazy situation we're ending up where we're having congressional forces try to force those kind of ridiculous rules onto ICE. And we have this apparently whatever group is suing the Tennessee law. All of it's judicial activism. That's a good word for it. Judicial activism trying to keep ICE from being able to actually do its job. At the end of the day, that's what it is. These people are suing because they want ICE to fail and they want ICE to not be capable of deporting people. Okay? That's how simple it is. You don't have to there's nothing complicated about it. They just want ICE to fail. And also they want to put ICE in danger, which I guess is something that we could talk about. Did I have this up? Okay, I had earlier up a specific uh, article, and it was explaining how they're actual. Okay. Actually, I have this in my bookmarks. I'm going to pull it up right now. But yeah, they've been using an app to try and endanger law enforcement. They've been using an app to both evade ICE and also potentially go after and assault ICE, get them ambushed. And yeah, we've been screwing with it. Here's the article. I'll put it in here for you, Ye, in the general.
Oh, you've been flooding it with like fake shit.
Yeah. Right Angle News Network. Republicans are now flooding the ICE Block app, an app used to help illegals evade ICE, with false reports in an effort to render the app unusable.
All right, guys. Here's what you do. If you want to, let's say you live in like an urban area. You live in urban California, urban Texas, urban New York. Let's say you want to go to the grocery store, or you want to go. You want to go somewhere. You don't want to have to deal with lots of illegal aliens. They're just there, not speaking English. They're doing things. You go up there. About an hour before you go to the grocery store, you say that there's ICE agents at that grocery store. And what do you know? You have a more peaceful day ahead of you.
Well, yeah, anyways. I haven't thought about it that way. Like, it's actually just an app, whenever you want the illegal people to not be where you're going, you just like type in the ICE. Oh my gosh. Look, guys, ICE is waiting at the movie theater. Oh my gosh.
There are federal agents. There are federal agents outside of the Home Depot. Please don't go there.
There, yeah.
Anyways, I forgot to mention this. Trump is at -10 in Rhode Island in approval rating.
I don't fully trust these polls, man. I mean, like I've been paying attention to them still. I don't know how much I trust these off-year stuff. I'm still paying attention to it. I think Trump's down, but I'm having trouble accepting some of the. Well, actually, I mean, I guess that's not down 10 in Rhode Island. You said?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's only down 10 points in Rhode Island. He's +4 in Nevada.
No, that's not bad. I don't know how much I trust these polls, though.
Well, okay, statewide polling is a little less realistic because if you looked at, like, civics, they had Biden underwater in, like, Hawaii at some point, which maybe that was true, maybe it wasn't. I still don't know how realistic that is. -1 in Pennsylvania, -1 in Iowa, +0 in Arizona, but +3 in North Carolina, +4 in Georgia.
Oh, okay. That is very realistic. I'm not going to be like, yeah, that seems like normal. I think like any polls that I see that are just like a couple of points to the left or right of the actual November results are kind of the things that I trust. And it's just like my general sense is like the country has not moved 5 points in either direction since the election. I'm just going to go out there on a limb and say
no, it hasn't. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot about it. They released a poll about 15 or 20 minutes ago. They did a 2024 rematch poll, and Trump won by 3. So
Trump plus
they
3.
Clearly, yeah, Trump +3 in a rematch poll. So I don't really care what Trump's approval rating is. If you ask people, hey, I know you don't really care for Trump that much. Trump versus Harris again. Who are you picking? There's one. I don't know if there's any crossover from Trump to Harris at all, but if there is, it's overshadowed by the Harris to Trump voters, which the fact that Trump's only down 1 point in Pennsylvania and +3 in North Carolina, the fact that he's +3 in North Carolina does give me a little bit of hopium for that Senate race, though. That could be interesting because one, black turnout's going to be down, which you're going to need. And if he's +3 in the state going into it, I don't think Republicans have that much trouble. Even with, I don't think Roy Cooper's going to hop in, but even if he does, I don't think he's a lock for that seat.
Right. No, I think a big thing about these polls is just that a lot of it is an imaginary candidate, an imaginary Democrat candidate, especially on the federal president level, but even in some of the low, it's this idea, oh, Republican versus what we used to think Democrats were. But now Democrats don't know what the heck they are, and they don't know who to put up as a candidate. And my prediction is whatever they end up doing, it's going to be terrible. That's the thing,
right? The only person they're including in polling that isn't at like 2% in the primaries right now, that isn't just completely god awful as a candidate, is Ben Shapiro. And Ben Shapiro, holy shit, is Josh Shapiro. And Josh Shapiro Josh Shapiro is not going to win a Democratic primary. For one simple reason that I'll let you guys figure out. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
K-Cub for 2. Marquette Law in Wisconsin has Trump at 47% approval. Not bad. Oh, yeah. K-Cub, since you're here, I asked Rap. He says Bucks in 6 in response to your thoughts on everything the Bucks did yesterday. Bucks in 6. I don't know what that means, but I hope you do. Now, I have a couple of I have a few smaller news reports to go through, but since we're talking about how terrible Dems are, we can talk about Act Blue real quick. This was an article I'm posting in general for you. It's official. Act Blue busted, and they're cornered with nowhere to run. And so this is a combination of a few different articles, but the point of the post is that we have multiple members subpoenaed, and they're having to testify specifically on the small dollar donations from A, people who never donated, and B, that were coming from a source of a much larger group. So it's all the stuff that has been talked about with Data Republican and with like New York Post and everything. This probe is going after the widespread fraud of Act Blue, and it's going to have an effect of A, they probably can't use Act Blue next year for midterms, and B, any organization they prop up to do the same thing they were doing with Act Blue, which is smurfing, is going to immediately face legal troubles and probably have their assets frozen. So what do you think that does to midterms?
If Democrats are not able to siphon money from foreigners, because like there are people who have been there were literally dead people donating tens of thousands of dollars to Democrats through this system. There are dead people going through proxies from halfway across the world. Act Blue, like it sounds like a boomer conspiracy to be like, oh my god, Democrats are funneling money from foreigners to fund their candidates, but it's true. They were funneling money through dead people, through elderly people that haven't been politically active in any way, shape, or form in a decade, through young people who don't have the funds to make those kinds of donations. And they were using them, and that's how they were outraising everyone. I'm trying to tell people, Democrats are not, as much as we pretend, I mean, as much as Democrats are the party of upper class, rich white liberals, they're not that rich. I mean, like they're McMansion types. They make $200,000 a year. They're not donating 20,000 of that to fucking Alyssa Slotkin.
It's really crazy because they do have a lot of consumer goods, and if you like took videos of their lives, you think, oh man, they're living pretty good. But when you actually look at the ledgers of these people's finances, because they live in these big cities and they pay 50% basically tax on everything, it is kind of insane that they barely get by. They barely can afford things. Their lives look nice from like an external perspective, but when you actually look at their checkbooks, they are barely getting by. It's like it's really strange. They are serfs, but they're heavily luxurious serfs. I guess that's what you would say. Like they're made to feel as if that they're like doing better than they actually are. And there's a couple articles I was seeing from our guys on our side of X talking about like the lifestyle of these like artists and inspirational types that they just barely make enough. They make enough money that if they were living in a state like Alabama, they would be functionally rich. But because they live in New York or Chicago or whatever, they're freaking like they barely have enough money to get pizza on the weekend. It's like really funny.
That's the funny part. Well, not even that, because like as much as people like to talk about how bad taxes and cost of living are in places like Chicago and New York, if you are like even remotely competent with your checkbook and are willing to, overlook some like extremely luxurious purchases, you can live pretty comfortably off of $120,000, $150,000 a year if you'd believe it. Like you don't have to have all this shit, right? You're allowed to live like a basic life just because, if you want to spend like you make $200,000, you got to live at a place where $200,000 actually goes a long way.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, it goes back to my original point. They don't make enough money to make these large donations to Democrats.
Yeah, what I'll say, guys, and this is just, I'm not saying to live like this, but when I first was converting, my godparents did not come from an affluent family. my godparents probably, I'm guesstimating. I think that they're a single income household that makes like 60 something $1,000 a year with 3 children. So 5-person household living off of 60,000 a year. No, they don't live in a house I would ever want to live in. No, they don't all have smartphones. No, they don't have this. But I'm just saying, if you can choose how you want to live, what you want to live with, and what you don't want to live with. Unfortunately, I could never live with that level of asceticism, which is probably why I'm going to have less kids than them. But like at the end of the day, it's like you can make do, guys, and it's just a matter of what kind of life you want to live. I had a super chat from K Cub. Let's see here. K Cub for 5. Well, John, in 2013, Bucks legend Brandon Jennings said they'd beat LeBron's Heat in the playoffs. He said, quote, "We gonna win in 6 games. Bucks got swept." Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm like, as far as sports go, I watch college football and some baseball. I've like passively watched baseball. I do not watch basketball, and I do not watch professional football. I'm not a big sports guy.
I only watch college football, and that's because I go to college and they have a good football team.
Yeah, I root for the team of the college I root for the enemy team of the college I went to, FSU.
That's awesome. Well, okay,
And,
I root for the enemy team of the college my mom went to. So
yeah.
that's because I went to the college that my mom's college is the enemy too.
Yeah, but I also root for Auburn because I have so much family that went to Auburn University in Alabama. Love Auburn. That's why I love Tuberville. Watch like Tommy Tuberville. Reason I love Senator Tuberville is because he was the coach there. Kyle Beckman for 5. Here in California, can confirm we are making $160,000. Have a modest 3-bed, 2-bath house, but taxes and cost of living kill us. So yeah, you're able to get by, but it's not a pleasant life, and they don't realize that they could be living better with less stupid policies.
I was gonna say, okay, let me ask this person this. You make $160,000 a year in California. Do you have the money to donate $10,000 to Act Blue?
Yeah.
Like regularly?
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Like, that's my point. It's like they were kind of blatant with it, you know? And they weren't just blatant with it. They were like, if you look at the funding, it was like, you're telling me this 75-year-old woman went completely politically inactive for a decade and is now suddenly donating tens of thousands of dollars to candidates. She's from Nova. Like, I think like this was one specific person they brought up, and it was so obvious that this was not a genuine person. It was money being funneled through her name.
Yeah.
But and yeah, no. Two things. One, Act Blue, if it goes away, that kills them in the midterms.
Yeah.
And 2, Trump has what? I'd have to look again. I don't want to say the wrong number, but I'm going to say the wrong number. $1.4 billion in commitments for the midterms.
Yeah. No, the point I just want to make is like this layers on top of the problem they already have. It's a pre-existing problem. You know, the reason why they have to pay people to go to Bernie Sanders rallies, and the reason they have to pay people to commit domestic terrorism, and the reason they have to pay people to do all of this crap is because these people are freaking lazy. And so on top of these people not really going to be willing, these college educated, like upper middle class people that live like they're lower middle class, these people are not only not going to have extra money to send, they're just like too lazy. And I think these problems are going to compound on each other. You're going to have bad get out the vote operations. You're going to have underfunded get out the vote operations. I think the laziness and the luxury is going to finally suffocate the Democrat Party. I'm hoping that's what happens. Okay, I got a few super chats. K cover 2. We all know your favorite team is the Gators. JK, ha ha ha. Colton Langs for 5. Do not diss the nation champ Gators. Look, man, I'm not going to go into specifics, but they gave me reasons both on a private level and a local level. There's really not like them. They like my grandfather lives in this town. He lives in a town that they completely trashed when they went there. And I never forgot that. And it's a news story. You can look it up if you want to. It was really bad. Kyle Beckman for 2. No, but I have bought $10,000 in guns. You might have bought them too early because there's going to be a kind of at least in a couple of states, I think there's going to be in Florida, actually, there's going to be a tax-free season for guns between September and December, I think.
That's it's like 6 months. It's like I think it's like 5 months, 4 or 5 months.
It's crazy. I love that. Polite Rear Guy for 2. That is the Trump 2028 campaign fund, 1.8. No, Polite Rude Guy, the money that they're currently raising is not the Trump campaign fund. They're going to raise money for what Mar-a-Lago and Trump want in 28. But right now, all of that money is dedicated to midterms. We have
if I remember correctly, that 1.4 billion, that is for the midterm election. That's not for 2028.
It is midterms, and Trump can dump millions of dollars into whatever campaign he wants. It's actually it's like freaking crazy.
For example, Thomas Massey. That is going to be fun because they put out some random poll from some no-name lady, and she's beating him by 12 in the primary. And it was like, I think it was like 19% Massey, 31% random lady, 50% undecided.
Yeah. Anyway, guns are tax-free in West Virginia all real round at Real American. Yeah, Stan, you know what? I'll think about it. I'll think about moving to West Virginia just to buy free guns. Oh gosh. There's a monastery up there I want to visit, but not particularly a place I've thought about moving. Oh yeah, another thing I wanted to bring up was Scott Adams' kind of unique take on this USAID story. Former USAID administrator claims Trump cuts would cost 12 million lives. Everybody will die. Everybody will die if you don't give us our, fake money that we're stealing from taxpayers.
If you don't give the illegal aliens lots of health care, everyone will die, including Americans, because this makes sense. Despite the fact that, not paying for illegals' health care will stop them from going to the emergency room and clogging it up and causing people in this country legally to die from lack of care. If we don't give the illegal aliens free health care, Americans will die. Smile?
Yeah, but we've been covering this for months. You guys know the drill, but I will bring up the official statistic from Marco Rubio. The Secretary of State brought up that like 85% of all the money going through these programs did not make it to wherever they were supposed to be going. They all went into people's pockets in Washington, D.C. one way or another. This was a giant money laundering scheme. They were stealing your money and giving it to their Democrat campaigns. And this is Scott Adams' take. I thought this was funny. This looks like a Dilbert situation, which is like his comic, if you guys are too young to remember. An organization making a hard-to-check and probably exaggerated claim of saving millions of lives via their excellent work. And then when their funding is cut, they claim it kills those imaginary people they saved. Like that's basically
Oprah Winfrey got, I think she had some like some coat operation. They were supposed to give coats to poor children. They got tens of millions of dollars. I think they bought 15 coats and none of them went to the kids.
Yeah.
That's just one example of USAID being, USAID.
And
Matthew's I wonder why. I wonder if Democrats are, losing their funding because of USAID now.
I think USAID was a big reason why they're struggling. I would say that this money laundering scheme being shut down is also part of why the DNC is going bankrupt. I think it's all connected. But Matthew was making a good point. He said more than that, only 2%, 15% of the money made it out of the country. 85% went to Washington, D.C. But of that 15%, really only 2% went to actual aid to anybody, which means that the 15% went to African warlords and dictators and random people across the world, the governments that were supposed to use the money for their people. They just used it. So we're actively propping up and funding horrible regimes, not necessarily Marxist, but just dictatorships across the planet with USAID money. And it's and then that's the same reason why the South African president in the Oval Office felt like he could hustle our president in the Oval Office. Hey man, you want the white killings to stop, man? Give me that money. give me the dough. Like that's because he knows that. Because he feels entitled to it because we fund all these dictatorships and crap across the world. Yeah, so no. This is all ending, which is beautiful, but you have to look at the death cries and just really soak it in. Oh, you're killing 12 million imaginary people. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. And we're going to wrap up the stream. So this is your last call for super chats, but I have 2 more tiny stories to talk about. I have a quick story about, well, actually, I was just going to bring up Trump's Truth Social about Zoran. President of the United States says, I am not going to let this communist lunatic destroy New York. Rest assured, I hold all the levers. I have all the cards. I will save New York City and make it hot and great again, just like I did with the good old USA. So it looks like he's saying, I'm going to use my leverage. I'm going to defund New York City if Zoran becomes mayor. Your scenario of New York collapsing after Donald Trump defunds it. Yay.
That'll be interesting because obviously people go, oh, well, Trump did this. Trump did this. No, you did this. You elected the guy. This. And we're not going to give money to a communist or a democratic socialist because all that ends up doing is, okay, well, what's he going to do with the money? Like, seriously, what's he going to do with the money? He's going to, okay, here's what I don't understand. I was talking to a guy, big Zoran fan, I think in part just because both of them are Muslim, which is one thing I'll talk about at a later point. And he was a big fan of Zoran, and he was like, he kept trying to defend everything he was saying. We eventually got to the point of talking about law enforcement. He went, oh, well, actually, he's moderated on everything. He's no longer a defund, abolish prisons, very progressive, even though that shit was like 3 years ago. Anyways, back to what I was saying, he was like, oh, well, he doesn't want to get rid of all cops on mental health calls. He just wants to send like a team of 2 people. I look up Zoran's actual policy. He wants to get rid of the system where they send a cop and a nurse to a mental health situation, which, if you ask me, I think is actually a good idea. And that's from someone who does a lot of research in law enforcement and did a lot of that during the 2020 shit. Sending a cop and a nurse or a mental health professional to a mental health situation is not a bad thing. It probably is a good thing. Zoran wants to get rid of that and replace it with entirely unarmed teams. Because having a cop on scene with the mentally ill guy with a knife is actually just going to escalate the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, Zoran's a fucking idiot. Whatever he does with that money is going to be devastating for that city. And I think, why send my tax dollars to let him already fuck with it?
Yeah,
he wants to do it, spend his own money.
I heard a new policy. It's like every single time I hear a new policy from this guy, it's insane. But we had talked so much about all these other policies. The newest one that I had heard, did you hear that, I think in 2023 in a Zoom call, he said that he wanted New York City to start buying up all of the mid-range property that they could in the center of the city and start doing whole social housing blocks.
I had not heard of this, but it would not surprise me in the slightest.
So beyond rent freezing, he actually wants commie style apartment blocks. He's gonna seize, I guess his version of seizing the means of production is basically owning all of your food and houses and only giving it to you if he has an amount available. This is again, this is just communism. There is no meaningful distinction between this and communism. I'm sorry. There's just not.
Which, I mean, yeah, under the actual definition of communism, which is stateless, classless society, yes, it's not communist, but you know what? It is. The problem with the USSR and the CCP and stuff is they were not communist by definition, but they were totalitarian socialist, which is exactly what Zoran is based. He's a one step removed from Soviet style socialism, which is just the totalitarian part. He's quite literally, he's right there. He's really not that far off. And if you want to calling him a communist isn't even that much of a stretch, because
no,
by the USSR definition of a communist, he is basically already there.
It's all been this situation where it's just a situation where we know who will be enfranchised by these policies, and they are actually, believe it or not, like some of the people, a lot of the policies are going to harm everybody in New York, but some of these policies do pander directly to the coddled like class of people we've been discussing earlier in this stream. But at the end of the day, the whole system's going to fall apart. The billionaires are going to run away. We're probably going to have we're going to have like a refugee crisis from New York City into the rest of the country, if any of these things actually happened. Which I guess is why it's good that Donald Trump's going to stop it. But no, I can't think of a more contemptible, lazy, and unproductive class of people to coddle than the New York artists, like whingy upper middle class group of people. I really can't. They're
you see that
yeah.
In his official campaign, he literally ran on a platform of taxing white neighborhoods more.
Yeah. Yeah,
he explicitly came out and said that. And I was having an argument with people like, oh, that's not actually his policy. It's like,
it
okay.
Says it.
Yeah,
it says
one of the
whiter.
worst arguments I ever heard was, oh, a staffer wrote that. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
You're hiring staffers and okay. First of all, Mondani does have to approve everything that comes out. I assume he's not letting random unvetted staffers post things without his approval. Secondly, you're hiring people who say that, and then you approve of that, what he's saying. And it's like, even at best case scenario, it's a Freudian slip. Worst case scenario, it is actively campaigning in favor of taxing white people more.
He became a citizen in 2018. It took him 2 years to advocate for taking down Columbus statues. In 2021, he was bragging about being like the representative for the last majority white borough in Queens. Like, this dude celebrates and is gleeful at the thought of white people dying and running away screaming from New York City. He is actually that evil, and he doesn't think he's evil, but that is like the actual, like, it is an accurate representation of what it is. If white people were running, screaming from New York City as a result of his policies, he would have a smile on his face and he would be like, good, get out of here.
No more billionaires. Remember that?
Yeah, no more billionaires. Mike Finn for 2. Breaking. Massey says he has 10 reps to kill one big, beautiful bill. I don't know why they continued the motion if he does have it. Right now, I'm actually looking at the live stream. We're at 204 yays, 212 nays. There have been no nays put in by Republicans so far. There's 16 votes left. If Massey has 10, then the bill's dead, and for at least a week. And then a week later, it'll come back.
What is it? I'm sorry. Like, what was the voting numbers?
Yeah, so I'll put the link in general. But right now, on the ordering the previous question, I don't think this is the final vote, but they have the current stack is 204 Republican yays to 212 Democrat nays. There's 16 votes left. So
how many are Republicans?
No, they're all Republicans. All of the votes left are Republican. Nobody has voted nay yet.
And 10 of them are no's, and none of them have voted yet.
Yeah, Massey is claiming he has 10 no's.
You'd think if you had 10 no's, at least one of them would have voted no by now. Unless they're all just waiting to vote no at the same time, which I don't think that's really a smart idea.
Yeah. We'll see. Let's see. Procedural vote on the motion to move on to... Okay, so this is the last vote before the vote, I think. Like, they have so many votes before the votes. I think this is the vote before the vote, so we could still pass this one and the bill not be passed, I think. That's what somebody in chat is saying on that stream. Chris Creative for 5. Yeah, I'm an artist, and it's hard for me to date or make new creative friends because so many artists are literally communists and generally untalented. So yeah, when I say contempt for the class, I don't say for anybody individual, Chris. Like, one of my best friend that I've had for about a decade, he is like a genuine, wonderful artist and animator. He does these really cool animations. And I usually spend time watching like old like 1920s.
You talking about anime?
No, I was responding to a super chat. A guy is an artist. I was talking about how much contempt I had for like the upper middle class, like bougie light New Yorker. And like I used artist as like an example. And I just wanted to clarify, like, my best friend's an artist.
What do you have against El Carbo? What did El Carbo do to you, dude?
Al Carbo did so many things against me, but right now, for the past couple weeks, it's been mostly lying about my faith, but not my faith personally, but the Orthodox faith. But no, with Chris Creative, I just want to say I love. There are individual artists I love, but the folks, like the general folks in New York, the class of people, that collective is just something I could never imagine having sympathies for. Oh yeah, but you know what? Instead of anime, I will bring up the very last topic for this channel for this stream. Yeah, Pokemon. No, it's cultural. So Game Rant put out an article called "Pokemon Scarlet and Violet remove long-standing female empowerment feature." Okay, so here's the deal. This is why I'm bringing it up. In the latest like Pokemon games, they took out gender, they took out sex, and like gave you styles because they're trying to cater to LGBT crapoids. And because yeah, most of Pokemon fans are probably like 40-year-old transgenders and stuff like that, right? But now they're complaining that they removed skirts from the video game. So they were complaining about sex being in the game, and they removed male and female from the game. And now they're complaining about skirts not being in the game because obviously they couldn't do skirts if there's no male and female characters if they want to be like a children's game and just like kind of be kosher. So they're actually really upset about it. And the point that I just want to make with it is like last thing on the stream. These people are gay, and like whatever horrible crap that gets put out for them later, they deserve it. However horrible the next game is, they deserve it because these people have put impossible standards on whatever any game, not just Pokemon, but whatever video game that they actually talk about or try to show an interest in, they just ruin it. They ruin everything they touch, and they just deserve nothing. They deserve nothing in life. That's my opinion.
I agree. These people.
Just like let people be normal in video games, man. Just let people be normal. Let women be women, and they get to wear skirts, and let men be men, and stop whining and bitching about it. If you are
Al Carbo play as Al Carbo, okay?
Let Al Carbo play as Al Carbo.
That's all we're asking, you know?
Yeah,
sorry to Al Carbo if you're watching this. If you're watching this, Al Carbo, at me on Twitter or something.
If Al Carbo, if you're watching this, I fucking hate you.
Dude, why did you ban me from your Minecraft server for making a liberal democracy, bro? That's not very cool.
Oh goodness.
Yeah. Send me back.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, that's really it. That's all we had to talk about today in the stream. We're going to have more. They're going to vote like right after this, in the preceding hours after the stream. We're going to either have a big, beautiful bill on Trump's desk, or we're going to have a week of Freedom Caucus members arguing with the rest of Congress. But I think it's going to get through, and we're going to talk about the positives. We're going to be positive because we have so many things to be negative about.
We're going to find... Before we go, though, I have a public service announcement. If you would like to talk with yours truly and John Rose occasionally, and even Tyrone, I now have a Discord server that is open to the public, so I will post it in chat, so if people want to join, they can. I thought I'd put it out because usually when I make a Discord server, it dies within a week, but this one's been going for like 3 weeks. And it's still very active. So if you want to talk with like-minded individuals about the big, beautiful bill, foreign policy, and even Al Carbo, I don't even think he's in there, but still, everyone's welcome to join. I'm going to post it.
If you guys know me at Real John Rose and we're mutuals and you are an adult, I do not want minors. If you're an adult, preferably an adult kind of in your closer to your mid-20s than your like early 20s, but if you're an adult and you're mutual with me on Twitter, you can text me and you can invite. I have a server, but it's a lot. I keep myself a lot more guarded and private because, like, I literally say whatever I want.
A lot more open. Yeah, my server's a lot more open. We're a big tent. That means less so political views and more so like there's 15-year-olds and 50-year-olds, and they kind of keep to themselves. I don't know. There's like private channels, whatnot. So have fun. join the server. The link is in chat. I believe it's sent. Did it come up in the chat?
Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it
no,
did,
you guys join Luke's server. I'm not ever gonna publicly invite my server. I don't think I'm gonna open it up. Tyrone already makes too many mistakes inviting people in my server.
No, I don't blame you, dude. I don't blame you. I have the one that's open for everyone. You've got the elite. You've got the
I've
elite.
got the elite.
If you are super well behaved in my server, you might be able to get upgraded to the elite server.
To the elite server. Yeah,
yeah.
no.
My server's like the testing ground. If you can hold yourself semi well and be semi professional in my server, then John Rose will consider.
I'll think about it, man.
Yeah.
All right, but otherwise, guys, I thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks for supporting Rap. Fuck On Point Politics, I guess, because he fucked my boy. I gotta say, fuck him. You know, man.
And he's meeting with. He also met with the leader of a cult-run news agency called the Epoch Times. I don't know why he's doing that. I guess he's that desperate for a job that he's wanting to work for a cult. The grind,
really
I guess.
Yeah. But anyways, just check out Rap's video if you haven't, so that you know what's up. And stay tuned, because we're gonna keep making stuff. Rap might give you some long format videos in the future.
And I'm gonna be doing walking videos where I talk about the news while walking. So
I will do nothing but occasionally join this VC and say stupid shit into the microphone.
Yeah, Luke walks, Rap ponders, we'll keep streaming. Otherwise, guys, God bless each and every one of you, and Godspeed to all of you.